Hello learners, I am Anisha. Last time we learned concept of growth and development. Today we shall continue with the same topic and cover the principles of growth and development and its educational implications. So what exactly do we mean by principles? Now we need to know that there is a set of principles that characterize the pattern and process of growth and development among children. These principles or characteristics describe typical development as a predictable and orderly process. That is, we can predict how most children will develop and that they will develop at the same rate at about the same time as other children. Although there are individual differences in children's personalities, their activity levels and timing of developmental milestones such as ages and stages, the principles and characteristics of development are universal patterns. So let us now try to understand these various principles or these generalizations that we make. We shall totally discuss 11 different types or 11 principles. So we have the first one, and that is the principle of developmental direction. Under this principle, we have the cephalopodal principle and the proximo-distal principle. These predictable patterns of growth and development enable us to predict how and when most children will develop certain characteristics. The cephalopodal and proximo-distal tendencies are found to be followed in maintaining the orderly sequence and direction of development. Now, according to the cephalopodal principle, development proceeds from head downwards. The child gains control of the head first, then the arms, and then the legs. Infants develop control of the head and face movements within the first 2 months after birth. In the next few months, they are able to lift themselves up by using their arms. By 6 to 12 months of age, infants start to gain leg control and may be able to crawl, stand or walk at times. Coordination of arms always precedes the coordination of legs. In other words, it's the hands first and then the legs. According to the other principle, that is the proximo-distal development of direction, development proceeds from the center towards the outward body. This means that the spinal cord develops before other parts of the body. The child's arms develop before the hands, and the hands and feet develop before the fingers and toes. Finger and toe muscles, which are used in motor dexterity, are the last to develop in physical development. This means that development of more difficult tasks begins with the mastery of simple tasks first. It is also known as a progressive evaluation. The development of all aspects of functioning, including cognition, perception, etc., progresses from lack of differentiation to increasing differentiation, articulation and hierarchic integration. The next principle is continuity. Now, it means development is continuous throughout life cycle. It's a gradual and incessant modification in both the domains, that is psychological as well as physiological of a human being. It means that development starts at birth and then ends at death. The next one is rate of growth and development is not uniform. Development follows continuity, yet the rate, the pace of growth and development is not steady and uniform at all times. For example, different parts of body grow at different rates. All parts of a body can never grow at the same rate. At birth, the head is 1/4 of the body in length. Later, other parts of body grow very fast till it reaches maturation. Another example to understand is that at birth, the typical boy grows faster than the typical girl, but the velocities become equal to about 7 months, and then the girl grows faster until 4 years. From then until adolescence, no difference in growth velocity can be detected. The next principle is principle of individual differences. This is a very popular one. No two persons are alike. All the individuals differ from each other in many respects. Children born of the same parents and even twins are not alike. Hence, according to this principle, there exists many differences among children with respect to their growth and development in several areas, in several dimensions. Every organism is a distinct creation in itself. Therefore, the development which undergoes in terms of the rate and outcome in various dimensions is quite unique and specific. For example, all children will first sit up, then crawl, and then stand before they actually start walking. But individual children will vary in regard to timing or age at which they can perform these activities. The next principle is uniformity in pattern. Although there seems to be a clear lack of uniformity and distinct individual differences with regard to the process and outcome of the various stages of development, yet it follows a definite pattern in one of the other dimension, which is uniform and universal with respect to individuals of a particular species. For instance, the development of language follows a somewhat definite kind of a sequence. It's quite common to all children. For example, most children start speaking in monosyllables, and then they use words, then phrases, and then sentences. The next principle is development proceeds from general to specific responses. While developing in relation to any respect of personality, the child first picks up or exhibits general responses and learns to show specific and goal-oriented responses afterwards. For example, a baby starts by waving his arms in general random movement, and then afterwards these general motor responses are converted into specific responses like grasping or reaching out. Similarly, when a newborn baby cries, his whole body is involved in doing so. But as he develops, it is limited to the vocal cords, facial expressions, the eyes, etc. I'm sure you all have noticed how children cry from the time of infancy until they are a toddler. It changes considerably with time, their pattern of crying. The next one is principle of integration. By observing the principle of proceeding from general to specific or from the whole to the parts, it does not mean that only the specific responses are aimed for the ultimate consequences of one's development. Rather, it is a sort of integration that is ultimately desired. It is the integration of the whole and its parts, as well as the specific and general responses that enables a child to develop satisfactorily. The next principle, that is the eighth, is principle of interrelation. What is achieved or not achieved is in one or the other dimension in the course of the gradual and continuous process of development surely affects the development in other dimensions. Growth and development in various dimensions are interrelated and interdependent of each other. On the other hand, inadequate physical or mental development may result in a socially or emotionally maladjusted personality. That is why all efforts in education are always directed towards achieving a harmonious growth and development in all aspects of one's personality, in one's life. We can sum it up by saying that a child having poor physical development also tends to regress in the emotional, social and intellectual development. The next principle is predictability. Development is predictable, which means that to a great extent we can forecast the general nature and behavior of a child in one or more aspects or dimensions at any particular stage of its growth and development. Not only such prediction is possible among general lines, but it is also possible to predict the range within which the future development of an individual child is going to fall. For example, with the knowledge of platelet count in children, it can actually help us to estimate if a child is at risk of thrombocytosis. When the platelet count is low, your child may be at the risk of bleeding. So, I can say that by having the knowledge, I can predict about that particular child. The next principle is development is spiral and not linear. The path followed in development by the child is not straight and linear, and development at any stage never takes place with a constant or steady pace. At a particular stage of his development, after the child had developed to a certain level, there is likely to be a period of rest for consolidation of the developmental progress achieved till then. In advancing further, development turns back and then moves forward again in a spiral pattern. Growth and development is a joint product of both heredity and environment. This is our last principle. Heredity and environment, also referred to as genetics and circumstances, directly or indirectly influence the growth and development of a human in any dimension at all times. Let us now get to know the educational implications of growth and development. In other words, how will the knowledge and understanding of principles of growth and development help teachers in the classroom? Firstly, knowledge of the principles of growth and development tells us that there are wide individual differences among the children with respect to their growth, the way they grow, the timings of development, etc. Therefore, we must pay due attention to their individual patterns and growth rates while planning the course for their education and classroom transactions. Also, development is a continuous process as discussed earlier. So the teacher should take continuous efforts to achieve perfection in the various aspects of development of the child. The principle of proceeding from general to specific responses and the principle of integration helps the teacher to plan learning and arrange suitable learning experiences so as to achieve maximum gains in terms of growth and development. Development is an individualized process, so each child should be helped along the developmental process within the spheres of his individual ability. Each stage of growth and development has its possibilities and limitations. This implies that the teacher should not expect from pupils what is beyond to their stage of development. Also, heredity is a factor which we teachers cannot control. But as far as the environment is concerned, we need to strive to create a healthy and positive environment to children which is conducive to learning. I hope I have been able to cover every aspect of this topic clearly. Thank you for all your support. I wish all learners and future teachers well. Once again, thank you.